They thought they were untouchable. They thought they could push around a woman, intimidate her, and nobody would step in. But what these HOA enforcers didn't know was that her husband was a retired Navy SEAL. And when he found out what happened, the quiet little neighborhood they thought they controlled would never be the same again. This isn't your usual neighborhood argument. This is a story about race, power, abuse, and justice. It's a story about how rules meant to protect can be twisted into weapons. And it's a story about the one mistake these enforcers made: assaulting the wrong woman. By the end of this video, you'll be asking yourself one question. Was this just HOA harassment taken too far, or was there something deeper happening behind those white picket fences? If you've never lived in a neighborhood with a homeowners association, let me break it down for you. HOAs control everything. The color of your house, how tall your grass can grow, even what kind of car you park in your driveway. Now, at first, HOAs sell you the dream. We'll protect property values. We'll keep the community safe. We'll make sure everything looks nice. But if you've ever been on the wrong side of an HOA, you already know it's less about safety and more about control. And in this case, that control turned dangerous. Our story centers on a black family who had just moved into what was supposed to be their dream neighborhood. The lawns were neat, the houses lined up perfectly, and on the surface, everything looked peaceful. But under that surface, there was tension. The family started noticing little things. Notes slipped under their door about keeping the community standard. Complaints about the color of their blinds. Fines for trash cans being left out just a little too long. At first, they brushed it off. Everyone deals with annoying HOAs, right? But this felt different. It felt targeted. Because while other families got warnings, this family got threats. And while other people could bend the rules, they got punished for every little thing. The wife was often home alone while her husband was away. He was a retired Navy SEAL, disciplined and strong, but also a man who had seen enough in life to know when to pick his battles. He didn't want to start trouble. But the HOA enforcers. They seemed to want trouble. They showed up unannounced. They lingered near the property. And sometimes, they banged on the door late in the evening, demanding compliance. She told her husband about it, but he tried to calm her down. Maybe they're just strict. Don't give them what they want. But deep down, she felt it. This wasn't about rules. This was personal. It was a warm afternoon when everything boiled over. She was tending to her yard when two HOA enforcers walked up. They claimed there was a violation. Something about the paint on the mailbox being faded. She laughed at first. The mailbox? Really? But the enforcers weren't laughing. They accused her of ignoring previous notices. They said she was dragging down the neighborhood. She stood her ground. She told them her husband would handle it when he got back. But that wasn't enough. One of the men stepped closer, his voice rising. Another blocked her path to the front door. And then it happened. He shoved her. Her body jolted back. She screamed. She demanded they leave. But instead of backing off, they crowded her even more. Now imagine this. You're a woman standing on your own front lawn, in the middle of the day, and the people who claim to enforce order are the ones putting their hands on you. She broke down in tears, but she also fought back, yelling at the top of her lungs for help. And neighbors peeked through windows, unsure of whether to step in. When her husband got home, she was still shaken. Her voice cracked as she told him what happened. The bruises on her arm told the rest of the story. And that's when the calm, disciplined Navy SEAL in him met the furious, protective husband. This wasn't just about rules anymore. This wasn't just about fines. This was about his wife being assaulted in her own yard. He went to the HOA office the next morning. He demanded to see the board. And how did they respond? With arrogance. They claimed his wife was exaggerating. They claimed their enforcers never touched her. They even suggested she had been the one causing a scene. Let that sink in. A woman is assaulted, and instead of accountability, the HOA gaslights her. But here's what they didn't know. This man wasn't just a husband. He wasn't just a homeowner. He was a trained investigator, a strategist, a fighter. He started documenting everything. Photos of his wife's bruises. Testimonies from neighbors who saw the confrontation. Even video clips from nearby cameras. Piece by piece, he built his case. And then, he dug deeper. The more he investigated, the more he realized his family wasn't the first to suffer. Other residents had quietly complained for years. Fines that didn't make sense. Threats of liens on their homes. Selective enforcement that always seemed harsher on certain families. Some neighbors admitted, quietly, that they too felt targeted. But they were too scared to fight back. After all, an HOA can take your home if they want to. But the Navy SEAL wasn't afraid. The enforcers doubled down. They started driving by the family's house more often. Letters came in the mail threatening legal action. And one night, the family found spray paint on their fence, the word, "comply," scrawled in red. Was it the HOA? Was it someone trying to scare them into backing down? Nobody knew for sure. But the message was clear. Stop fighting back, or else. And here's where it gets chilling. Instead of feeling scared, the husband felt determined. Because this wasn't a battlefield overseas. This was his home. And he was ready to fight for it. Word started spreading. Neighbors who had once stayed silent began to speak up. "We've seen them harass you. They find us too. We were afraid to say anything." Slowly, the tide turned. What was once a small fight between one family and the HOA became a larger movement. People were angry. People were tired. And if you think that was wild, wait until you hear what happened when the media got involved. Click here, you won't believe it. Local reporters picked up the story. The black woman assaulted by HOA enforcers in her own neighborhood. It was too big to ignore. Suddenly, cameras were outside the gates. Microphones were shoved in board members' faces. And for the first time, the HOA realized they weren't in control anymore. The retired Navy SEAL husband spoke out publicly. He told the story. He showed the bruises. And when asked what he wanted, his answer was simple. Justice. The enforcers scrambled. They denied, they deflected, they tried to paint the family as troublemakers. But the truth was out. And the more they tried to hide it, the worse it looked. The community rallied. Petitions were signed. Protests were held outside the HOA office. The same neighbors who once whispered in fear were now shouting in anger. And eventually, the board had no choice. The enforcers were removed. An investigation was launched. And for once, accountability seemed possible. But let's pause here. Because this isn't just about one neighborhood, or one family, or one assault. This is about power. How many times have we seen rules twisted against the very people they're supposed to protect? How many times have black families been told they're overreacting, when the truth is, they're being targeted? This story hits deeper because it's not just about HOA abuse. It's about racial profiling, systemic harassment, and the constant fight for respect in spaces that claim to be equal. The Navy SEAL husband knew this. He'd fought for his country. He'd served with honor. And yet, back home, his own wife couldn't walk outside without being assaulted by men hiding behind the title of enforcers. That's the real crime here. In the end, this family didn't just survive the HOA's abuse. They exposed it. They turned the spotlight on a system that had gone unchecked for too long. And they proved that even in the face of intimidation, truth can win. So here's the question for you. Do you think the HOA enforcers went too far, or do you think this was just a misunderstanding that spiraled out of control? Comment your thoughts below. Subscribe if you got value from this story.